I think you'd get a kick out of it because you're doing such fun stuff with your boutique hotels, and it's just thinking outside the box. Like, you've got that same creative mind, right? It's easy to just go buy multifamily and be like, I buy fourplexes, right? And then unfortunately, like, I get bored with that part. I like the creative side. I think you like the creative side. It's something that you really can put your name behind. You know, someday you drive by 30 years from now, you're like telling your kids, like, I bought that, I transformed that, we still own that in our portfolio. Like, I think there's something to that that's really cool.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Reports. Today, we are in the studio here in downtown San Diego, and I got a very special guest. He is HGTV's vintage flip show expert. He's flipped over 300 homes. He's done deals with Tariq Al Musa. He was recently on the Bigger Pockets podcast. I got none other than Jessie Rodriguez. Jessie, welcome to the show, my man.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you coming on, man, and taking the time to drive all the way out this way. Tell me a little bit about what your background is and kind of what got you involved in real estate.
Yeah, so I've been flipping houses now for 10 years, just under 400 properties already. Based in Southern California, got started when the market crashed in 2008, became a realtor, started selling bank-owned foreclosures. And that's really kind of what launched me into investments, because I had so many listings that were distressed properties that I had investors calling me. So like, Rich, I knew nothing about investing in real estate, right? I was just a grinder of a realtor, and investors would call me and say, hey man, I want you to represent me on this house. I was happy to get that commission, sell that property off, no big deal. After a couple of years of seeing these guys that are buying them off me for, 150 grand and then putting them back on the market at 300, like, it just clicked. I was like, dude, what the heck am I doing? Like, why am I not trying to do this? So one of the guys that bought from me a lot, I ended up, asking if he'd be my mentor, if he'd teach me how to do it. And he ended up saying, like, I'm surprised it took you this many years before you asked. He's like, it was a fun run with you. Yeah, let's partner. And he ended up giving me capital, ended up teaching me the way. He's still my mentor to this day, 10 years later. Like,
I love that.
I was talking to him downstairs before I was walking up here, And he's just a guy he's been flipping for 30 plus years. Right? Doesn't even know what a podcast is. Doesn't know what we do in this new age of like social media and marketing ourselves. He's just an old school relationship guy that taught me the ins and outs of like how to flip a house. It's more than bed, bath, and square footage, right? It's the neighborhood. It's the community. It's the different versions of the roof, a flat roof versus a pitched roof, right? The architecture, the neighborhoods. Does it have a shared driveway? Is there a park nearby? Is there a school? There's going to be traffic if there's a pickup. That's going to affect your value. Dude, like these micro details of being a real estate investor. And that, I just took all that knowledge and I was like, all right, I'm going to do, 2 this year, then 5, then 10. Now I'm doing 30 plus every single year. And, 10 years in, still loving it. It's been a grind the last like 8-9 months, like everybody's been seeing. I hear a lot of negativity in the market about it. And I think it's a shame. I think it's the best time. I started flipping when the market was down. Like, so I see people that made a ton of money in the last 3 years, and they don't realize a lot of that money came because of upswing, not because of skill, and we're feeling it now with the capital markets the way they are, where it's hard to get money. Hard money is now 10, 11, 12% again. Dude, when I started, I was paying 3 points and 12% and making money. And now people are going, oh man, I can't get an 8% hard money loan. It's got to be 10 or 11. And I'm like, shit, come on, man. Like, let's go. That's no big deal. It just means you got to find a better deal. So, yeah, it's been a heck of a journey. And I really think like, I'm only 40. So it's like, I've got at least 10 more years of me. And, I'm evolving, obviously going into like multifamily, doing larger projects, adaptive reuse of old historic buildings, and just trying to just kind of diversify into many things, not just flipping, but my heart is flipping. Like, I'm bread and butter flipping forever.
Yeah. I love that you said you're 40 and you're just getting started, because in sports, we look at 40 as like, hey, that's the end of the road. You're past your prime and it's time to retire. But in real estate investing, 40 is like you're just starting to hit your stride, right? You're just starting to get the wisdom to do it. And I know a lot of people that jump into the game in their 40s, and it's still relatively early because you can do this stuff for many, many years. So I love that about it. I'm curious, from your early days flipping to today, how has your strategy changed?
So when I started, prices were lower, right? I look back at old photos on a rehab from 10 years ago, and I'm like, damn, I'd have to flip my flip. Like, how bad it looked. But it's, I was with the times in the sense that I was only trying to invest 25 grand on a house. My purchase prices were low. My profits were 20 grand. Like, really, when you think about it, like, I used to flip for essentially what a realtor makes in a commission, selling a $500,000 or $600,000 house these days. And now it's like I'm trying to go into bigger price points. Rehabs are 200, 250,000, doing additions, like forcing equity on these properties so that the profits can be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And like that's been the biggest thing. But I feel like I needed to crawl before I walked. I'm glad I didn't go right in because I made mistakes. I still make mistakes to this day, right? Like there's always something new you're learning, and there's losses that can happen, or you overspend. And it was okay when I was buying a $150,000 house and investing 25. If I was off a little bit, no big deal. You go raise some capital and you get into debt on a big, large project, a $2 million purchase, that hurts. Those swings hurt. So,
yeah, absolutely. What kind of properties are you guys targeting today if you were to flip?
So I'm all single family on the flips. I look for, like a hack is like a 2-1 that I can convert to a 3-2 within the existing square footage so that I'm not having to do additions. It's just take down a wall, right? Convert a dining room to a bedroom, a laundry room to a bathroom where there's plumbing and things already to get that forced equity. And then we're doing detached ADUs, taking a 2-3 car garage, it's detached. You've got 3 walls and a roof, so we're only framing up 1 wall. The foundation, the slab is there, right? Like, so stuff that in theory you could do in 3 to 4 months and get back on the market and have these huge value increases. Because in LA, you got properties you're flipping at 400, 500, 700 a foot, and you could do the construction at 150 to 200 a foot. There's just a lot of value add that you can do there. It really makes some big swings.
Yeah, I always tell people one of the best plays right now, especially in this market, being that we're in a softening market. We're in a high interest rate environment, and I believe the market's going to continue to soften before it improves. So for me, I'm like, I can't buy a turnkey property right now. You can buy a turnkey property in 2013. You could do it in 2015, 2017, 2019. You would have made money and you wouldn't have to do any work. Yeah. But your strategy has to change right now, even as a buy and hold investor. So I always say, hey, one of the best plays right now, especially in Southern California, is go pick up a property that has the potential to add an ADU, whether it's a garage you can convert, or maybe it's got a bigger lot and you can build potentially 1, 2, maybe 3 units in the back. That is a huge lever right now. And it gives you the opportunity to buy something, create a lot of value. And if the market continues to soften, because you created all that value, you're going to be in a relatively good spot, right?
There's a cushion.
There's a cushion and a margin for error.
Yeah.
And you always want that as a real estate investor. The thing you don't want is to buy something, pay retail, there's no room to add any value, and the market softens, and now you're in the red.
Yeah.
Right? And so with these ADU projects up in the Los Angeles area, what area, for context, are you doing most of these projects?
So Northeast LA, so okay. Highland Park, Eagle Rock, Silver Lake, Echo Park, like, Altadena, big fan of those areas. Now it works in South LA as well, by Inglewood. I mean, it honestly is working anywhere in LA. Where I don't do it is back in the Inland Empire. So like the Riversides, the San Bernardinos, because you just don't see the rental increase for it to make sense. It's the same 80 to 100,000 to convert a 2-car garage in Riverside that it is in LA, right? But the rent you're going to get in Riverside might only be 1,500 versus 2,500.
Sure.
And so it really, you get more value there, and you get the property increase, because we might only flip something at 300 a foot in the Inland Empire, but we can get 500 to 600, and it costs the same for the rehab.
I'm glad you said that, and that's one of my biggest takeaways just throughout my real estate investing journey. The way I'm kind of pivoting is early on I did a lot of stuff in the Midwest. Cincinnati was my first couple small multifamily deals I bought out there. But just adding value or doing a renovation, whether it's in a Midwest market or out here in the coastal market, it's relatively the same amount of work, time, effort, cost, managing contractors, all that stuff, all the headaches to do a deal or do a renovation in a place like Oklahoma versus a place like Santa Barbara, California. But I know we're going to create a lot more equity growth and a lot more appreciation and wealth in an area like Santa Barbara, because the price per square foot comps in Santa Barbara might be $850 a foot versus $250 a foot out in Oklahoma. And so I always say, if you're going to do these heavy projects, you might as well do them in areas to where you're going to get a huge value creation. So I love that you're doing that. From a permitting process standpoint, I guess, how long is the permitting process to get these ADU permits to convert a garage, let's say, in some of these areas you're in? Learning to become a successful real estate investor can take a lot of time and dedication, which some people just don't have. If you're one of these individuals, this doesn't mean you can't invest in real estate. My company, Summers Capital, is buying a bunch of boutique hotels right now, and you can invest with us in these deals without having to do any of the work. Our team sources the deals, we secure the lending, we take care of all the renovations, and we even handle all the day-to-day operations with our in-house management company, making it truly hands-off and passive for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you, go to Summers summerscapital.com/invest to book a call with our team. Again, that's summerscapital.com/invest. Now back to the show.
So, you'll hear some people say that you can get it done over the counter. In my experience, I haven't been able to do it over the counter yet. As cities are learning more about ADUs and being accepting of it, they are trying to be more flexible. I'd say you can get permit done within 2 to 2.5 months if you're on it. If you're architect and your engineer.
That's quick. 2.5 months. Wow.
If you have a great architect. I can tell you some of them for me have taken 5 months, right? And that's so I build 6 months for plans and permits and about 6 months for construction. And then, another 60 days after that to try to market and sell it. So really you're like 14, 15 months is what I think a project someone should underwrite when they're looking to do an ADU. But places like the city of Long Beach, they do over the counter. They have really jumped on the bandwagon of accepting ADUs and wanting to work with you. There's a few key factors though. The garage has to make sure it has a footing. If you're buying some of these older homes, these garages don't have footings on them, right? They have a slab, but they don't have the footing. So now you have to underpin, add a new footing. Like there's just these little things. So when you're actually out there walking the property, you really have to understand those things because it could go from 3 months to 9 months for that plans and permits. Because as the engineers keep getting call outs to do something to change it, not to mention the cost goes up drastically. But that just comes with like learning. I've learned that the hard way. I didn't know it, right? You didn't read it in a book. It was like, oh, I got plans approved.
Sure.
Inspector comes out and says, oh, the footing's not here that you drew that was there. And you're like, resubmit it. And then you go 2 months again.
Are you guys renovating the main house right away, or are you waiting till you start the ADU project?
So I'm submitting plans on both at the same time. And so sometimes I have to wait 6 months for both. Now you could do one instead of the other, but for me, it's just more capital that goes out that then sits there for 6 months because you can't flip the property.
Yeah.
Right. So really it's a cash outlay issue for me.
The reason I ask is because I thought, maybe one exit strategy could be, if you're doing a cosmetic renovation to the main house, and let's say it didn't require any permits, you can renovate the main house. Once you have the permits ready to go for the ADU, you can maybe sell it or flip it to someone else that could come in and build the ADU.
Yeah.
I do see some listings out here in San Diego to where they renovate and then they go through the permitting process. And this is typically like, permits to build multiple units on a larger lot. Like for example, I saw one recently. It was a triplex that had been renovated. They went through the permitting process, which was rather lengthy. I think it was like 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
They finally got the permits to build another 9 units.
Oh, wow.
Making it a 12-plex. And then now they're listing the property and they're like, hey, we don't want to deal with the construction. We're happy just taking a slight spread.
Yeah.
And we'll pass it off to the next guy.
There's probably a lot of paper value on that, right? There is a good increase that you can actually pass that on with permits that are ready to issue. I haven't seen the upside enough in an ADU because it's just the one single unit.
Sure.
You really want to do the work on that because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
And then you get all the increase.
It makes sense. And it makes sense because in this example, you're exiting to a buyer who's an investor. Investors are relatively more savvy than the turnkey buyer.
Yep.
And they're probably not going to pay premium. Whereas you're exiting you're doing all the work, renovating the property. You're exiting to a buyer who doesn't want to do any of the work, and they're going to pay a premium for something that's turnkey, ready to go. They don't have to deal with any headaches.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Which I love. So you mentioned before we started recording that you're doing some other projects, not just flipping. Tell me a little bit about some of these other projects that you're working on.
So one of the big ones we're doing right now is a 120-year-old packing house, like orange packing house.
What is a packing house?
So a packing house, so throughout America, these were located next to railroad tracks. And that's where they actually would pack the fruit. So like sun-kissed orange or lemons, right? Or avocados. So they would go pick all the fruits and vegetables from the farms, right? Then they take it to the packing house. The packing house then loads it onto the crates from the packing house. Like the packing house literally has sliding doors and the train would pull up right to it and you would load it. And that's how we would ship like oranges from California to other parts of the country. Well, so these packing houses, like it's not working like that anymore, the way we interact with, the food process, right? Packaging process. So these packing houses have gone vacant for the last 50 plus years. So there's been a big movement now of taking those, doing an adaptive reuse, which is like bringing it back to life and then putting, retail, live work lofts and things like that. So there's one in Redlands, California, which is a big citrus city. And we've purchased that and we're doing a big adaptive reuse and we're converting it to a food hall. So it's kind of interesting. So it's got the real estate play, which is the, fixing of and value add on the structure, but then we're bringing in a business element that we're going to control and run. And the food halls are very popular now. If you've seen those across, places like Long Beach and Anaheim and out here in San Diego. So now we're landlords and our tenants are renting out these 300 square foot areas that has a hood, and that's where they put their restaurant. It's great for startups. It's kind of like, I call it like the Airbnb of a small restaurant business, right? So it's low barrier of entry. It's not a lot of money. Let's say you've been a chef your whole life at home and everybody's always saying, Rich, you got to open a restaurant, right? Man, your food's so amazing. You got to open a restaurant. Well, you don't want to come out of pocket $100,000 on this big venture of a restaurant. You come in, we already have it built out. You just got to add some seating to it, bring your menu, but you're paying us a premium, right? It could be $8, $10 a foot that we're charging, as well as we take a percentage of your sales, right? Because we've spent all the money on the build out. Doesn't work for you in 12 months? No big deal. You exit, move on. We slide someone else in there. So we have the concept already done in Riverside. It's been up and running for 2.5 years. It's done really well. So we're starting to expand now and wanting to do more of these food halls, but owning the real estate as well. So we've got both plays.
Interesting. It's similar to like the co-working space
Yes.
that you're seeing all over.
Yep.
Versus renting out the entire space to one tenant. Hey, let's chop this up. Let's bring in 15 tenants that can kind of share it. So same thing with the food hall.
That's a better example than Airbnb. Yes.
So you guys are essentially you'd own the real estate, and then you would also own that business. However, you're not getting involved with the operations behind the restaurants. Like you guys operate the restaurant portion, just pay us rent.
Exactly.
And instead of having one tenant, you have 15.
Exactly. So we're like the property manager because they're tenants. And then we also have a portion where, because it's a communal space, right, there needs to be trash collection. There needs to be the cleaning crew. So then we do manage that side of the business where we're operating the maintenance of the property, but we're not running the bar, right? We don't own. Now there's that option. If I wanted to, I'm Cuban. So if I wanted to open up a little 300 square foot Cuban restaurant in there and let my mom be like, come on, Mom, you should do this, then I could pay rent like anyone else. But no, this is just a play on a new version of being a real estate landlord, which is like you're seeing the commercial markets the way they are right now. Everybody's talking about how office space needs to be converted to housing. Like this is that idea of doing an adaptive reuse of a space that's no longer working for the planning that was originally done and trying to make money in it, which is what we do, right? Like as real estate investors, our job is to be creative and come up with that next new thing. Whoever came up with Airbnb was a genius who said, this house is only going to rent for $2,000. I can get $5,000, but let's, and when it first came out, I remember thinking Airbnb was crazy. Like I was like, who's going to stay at someone's house? And then you take a step back and you're like, but wait, I stay at a hotel and that's got hundreds of people that stay there throughout the year. Why wouldn't I stay at a house that has more space, right? Like it's just breaking the mold, which is huge. And it's,
How do you value the ARV, or how do you determine what the value of these properties are going to be once you're done with them and you fill them up?
So it's cap rate model.
Okay.
It's just like commercial real estate. So the whole project, we should be into it for $12 million. We're going to take the NOI. We're going to back it into whatever we think the cap rate is, a 5.6, a 6%. And okay, now it's going to be worth $16 million. We have a construction loan on it. So we've got a convertible construction to perm loan already attached for $8 million. We have to put our own cash into it for the other $3 to $4 million, which we're raising on that to try to get some extra capital, right? So syndication on that, paying a great return. And then we have the $16 million valuation based on the cap rate. We can, refinance out of it. But what's great on this is we don't need to refinance. We already have long-term debt on it.
Yeah.
Long-term in the sense that it's a 7-year fixed.
So the $8 million note just converts to a long-term.
Yeah. So it's an 18-month construction loan that automatically converts after that, as long as the project's completed. And then the kicker, because we do historic buildings, or it's one of the niches that we're working on, is we actually get federal tax credits.
Interesting.
Like that's next level right there, right? So based on the total cost of the project, it's 20%. So on this project, we have a $2 million tax credit. That's like a bottom line tax credit. So if you invest with us based on your ownership, we pass that along. So, you give us $2 million, we're going to give you, and whatever that equates to in ownership, call it 30% of the project, 40% of the project, you can get 30 to 40% of that $2 million in a tax credit. So all of a sudden you gave $2 million, but you got $800,000 in a tax credit. Like your net effective investment's 1.2, plus you get the ownership right on the GPLP. I mean, it is like, it's hard as hell, right? It takes a long time to get through this, but it's next level investing.
The tax credits, those apply to your property taxes as well?
No, it applies to actually your income tax.
Gotcha.
So in this case, it is federal income tax. So if you're a high net worth individual that's paying taxes, You get to do it, and it rolls
So
forward.
you can use it to offset active income.
Yes.
Regardless of how much you make.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, that's impressive. So what are the biggest risks with this model? I mean, obviously, getting the green light from the city to convert it. Is that something that you have good direction on or good clarity on before you close?
Yeah. So, as a developer, usually the cities are fighting us. I hate to say that, but we know that, right? There's a community outreach that usually happens that doesn't want the big development, doesn't want the apartment buildings or whatever that's happening. In our case, because we are saving a building, right? We're not coming in and saying we want to buy this packing house, demo it, and do condos. We're saying we want to restore it. It's going to cost us 40% more to fix this than to tear it down. We kind of become a hero to the city. The city is your partner. The city, it's a true PPP, public-private partnership in the sense that they want this to work. So, it doesn't mean it doesn't take a long time to still get through planning and everything, right? But they are on your side in the sense that they know there's a value that comes from keeping the historical element of this. And you guys see it here in San Diego, right? So many of these older buildings, you can get to convert them, and the cities want you to convert them. They want you to save them. They don't just want it to be tore down and put a 50-unit, high rise.
Sure.
You make a lot more money in a 50-unit high rise, though. Let's be honest, right? But it's kind of, this niche is like an artistic passion part, plus you get to be a capitalist. And it's kind of got I feel like we're getting good God credits, I'm doing the right thing, but we can also make money.
You're doing some good stuff for the city as well. So I like that play. What's the timeline to get to close on a project like this to where you have customers coming in and they're eating food?
So we broke ground on construction a few months ago, and we're looking to be done within 15 months.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. Now the process, the building was purchased, 6 years ago.
Wow.
And it wasn't that it took 6 years to get through. It's just other projects we're working on and things like that. There's also, we bought it for so cheap, there wasn't necessarily a rush. When you're raising capital, you're kind of raising it, and then the investors are partaking in the fact that it might take 2-3 years before it really starts to turn, right? And it's a performing asset. So we bought it. We've started the work. We have the capital in. So when someone invests now, they're straight to hey, in 12 months, you're making money. They didn't ride the wave with us for the last 4 or 5 years, which I think is a good way that we're able to kind of entice people to come in and actually be equity partners much easier than, hey, we need $4 million and it's going to take 5 years before we get this thing done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a much longer timeline. What did that thing cost when you guys bought it 6 years ago? Just curious.
Under $500,000.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How many square feet is it?
35,000 square feet.
Wow, 35,000 for that cost. Wow, that's insane, man.
You'll have to come down. We'll do this podcast again in a year.
Dude, I'd love to.
I'd
love to come up and tour this thing. Maybe we can do a little YouTube video or something.
Yeah. We should do it now when it's in its current phase and do it again in 12 months.
Yeah,
when it's actually when you see the food stalls and you see
you said it's Redlands?
Redlands, yeah.
Gotcha.
So 2.5 hours probably from
Redlands has got a little airport.
Does it?
They do. They have a little general aviation airport.
Okay.
So maybe Oscar and I can fly up there in a small Cessna or something. We can come in.
That'd be fun.
We can do the video and hang out, grab lunch.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that'd be awesome, dude. I think you'd get a kick out of it because you're doing such fun stuff with your boutique hotels, and it's just thinking outside the box. You've got that same creative mind, right? It's easy to just go buy multifamily and be like, I buy fourplexes, right? And then, unfortunately, I get bored with that part. I like the creative side. I think you like the creative side. It's something that you really can put your name behind. Someday you drive by 30 years from now, you're telling your kids, I bought that, I transformed that, we still own that in our portfolio. I think there's something to that that's really cool.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I love seeing the transformation, and I love envisioning what a property can look like. And so that part's cool, but I also feel like in today's climate, you have to get creative in order to make deals work.
Yeah.
If you just go with the herd and follow what everyone else has been doing, you're probably going to get left behind, at least in this climate.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in order to make a nice spread or make a nice return right now, you got to get a little creative. You got to go against the grain and maybe think 2 steps ahead, which is everything in business, right?
Yeah, totally.
What other projects are you excited about these days? Is it in addition to that?
So that's one of the big ones. I mean, the other thing is flipping. Flipping is just I talk to people and they're like, man, flipping's dead. Flipping's the old way of doing things. And I just, it may not be sexy like it was, 10 years ago when it was the hot buzzword, or 5 years ago. I just I love it. Transformation is I'm a deal junkie, right? I'm not a drinker. I don't do drugs, but I'm a flipping junkie to the point that I find it hard to hold stuff. I'll go buy a deal and I'm like, man, this is a great deal. I'm going to burn my money back. And then, or I'm gonna make $1,000 cash flow, 3,000. And I go, or I could flip it and make 350,000. Like, and so my way is I'm not a long-term hold guy typically on stuff. I am just a flipper, and it fires me up. And I love when I meet someone like you that's a long-term holder, with multifamily, or someone that has 50 Airbnbs. Like, I love that in this industry, we can skin this cat any way we want, right? Like, there's 25 different ways to make money or whatever it is. Find the one that you love that fires you up every day. Like, I'm a deal junkie. Like, I'm comping homes downstairs when I was waiting for you for the last hour, like, on Zillow, trying to see if I could figure out how to comp this house. And I'm like calling my assistant, like, hey, go to Silver Lake. We got a triplex right now. Someone just sent me, go check it out. It's like, it's the hunt, man. That is just like, it fires me up every day, every day.
Yeah, you're exactly right, though. I feel like there's 100 different ways to make money within real estate investing, and there's no right or wrong. So I think when people are getting started and they're wondering which route they should go down, I'm like, well, try a few and see what you're into. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And I think the main thing is find one that you like and then go deep into that one thing.
Yeah.
And don't pivot until you get really good at that one thing.
People pivot too fast.
Yes, they do.
This is like, I'm 10 years into this and still learning how to flip every day is how I feel like, right? There's always something new. The markets have evolved and then evolving with them. And, ADUs didn't exist 4 years ago. Now it's like it happens and you're like, man, I'm gonna jump on this. Like, we used to beg to be able, like we would search for a multifamily lot to try to add an extra unit. And now in California, every single property you can add an extra unit. I mean, what a freaking amazing opportunity to get into buying something, adding the unit, and then burning it if you want to keep it, or flipping it for some great equity and then doing it again and rolling it all over. I mean, it's just, you can tell. I love it.
No, I agree. And I'm not afraid of the bridge loans right now. Bridge loans that were 8% a year and a half ago, yeah, I'd pay 11% today. But I'm not afraid of that because it's a short-term thing. You're creating so much value. And then from a timeline perspective, when you go to refi out, if you're gonna hold these things, when you go to refi out in 18 months, it's probably going to be an opportune time to refi.
Yeah.
I would imagine, if I'm a betting man, rates are probably going to stabilize a little bit between now and the next 18 months. And so I think it's, at least for me, I'm not afraid of these bridge loans paying 11% as long as the numbers pencil.
That's exactly it. The numbers just have to pencil. The deal is created in the buy, not in the sell. If you underwrite it correctly and you underwrite it with 11% and 8 months or 12 months carry, whatever it is, if it makes sense on paper that day, it's probably more likely going to make sense 12 months from now. The people that are hurting right now are the ones that got into these floating rates the last 3, 4, 5 years because they were getting 2.5 and 3.25. And now they can't seem to lock up any firm debt. And if they do, it's at 7, 8, 9%, but they underwrote it at a 3 cap, right? Where it's like, it does not pencil. They're just going to give them back. Like I made a mistake.
Yeah.
I think if you're buying today and you can make it work at a high rate, all you're going to do is ride a great way down of rates and just make more and more money, right? Like if you bought in 2008, 9, 10, 11, or 12, prices were low, rates were high. What happened? Rates came down, values went up for the next 7, 8 years. Those people are in a great position, And if you did buy 3 years ago and, you're like, don't take that as negative talk. Like you're going to be okay too if you're freaking focused on it. Like you do not stick your head in the sand. They're like, there is an opportunity. There's an exit strategy. There's, if you got something and you're feeling like you're upside down a little bit, should you invest a little bit more money? Should you add the ADU to get more value, more forced equity? And then you can do something. Then you can you just really have to figure it out. Are you upside down and you just need to sell it and kind of, lick your wounds and move on to the next one? Yeah, it's happened to me. Lost $100,000 on a flip, but I didn't say I was going to hold it forever now and make it a rental and lose $1,000 in rents because I made a bad decision. It's like, I flipped 30 a year. Does that mean I was right on 29 of them? Fuck yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. In this high rate environment, it's like, okay, if you're underwriting to a 18, 24-month bridge loan and then you're going to refi in a perm debt, let's say in 2 years from now, at least for us, we're underwriting to a 6.5% perm rate. And I'm like, okay, I feel good about that number. In 2 years from now, the rates could be 5, 5.5. If it is, so be it. But if they're 6.5, we're already penciling for that already.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How are the current rate environment being high and volatile? How is that affecting the flipping business right now in Los Angeles? Hey guys, real quick, I hope that you're finding value in this show. If you could do me a huge favor and drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you're listening on, it would mean the world to me. Also, if you know of anyone that would potentially benefit from this podcast, feel free to share it with them so we can help more people build wealth through real estate investing. Now back to the show.
So there was a really good opportunity the last 9 months when everybody was kind of panicking and values were declining. And rates were starting to go up, that I think there was a lot of opportunities and a lot of people pulled back You know, you talked about the herd mentality, right? When the herd's charging in, we probably should pull out. And when the herd's leaving, it's probably when we should go in. That's the opportunity. You know, so when it comes to like the higher rates now, I mean, I don't even see it as a negative factor at all. It's like, you know, all of a sudden, you know, when the hard money company says, hey, Jess, I can't give you 8.5, it's 9.5. Okay. Like in the scheme of things, what is that? $500 more in payment a month? I mean, dude, if that's busting my deal, it was a bad deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
Like, and that I think is, so when someone is stressing out, like someone that follows you or follows me, and they're stressing out over this deal because of something like that, I want to take them back to the beginning steps and go, you didn't buy a good enough deal then, right? You said yes to something, you should have said no. And that is the key, Rich, right? Is saying no. Like, it's the scariest thing. If I tell you no and you bring me a deal, I'm scared you're never going to bring me another deal. But I have to be confident enough and honest enough with you to be like, hey man, that one doesn't work in my buy box because of X, Y, and Z. Like, but please think of me on the next one, right? And then hopefully the next one does. And if they never works and you're always selling me, you know, thin deals, I'll continue to talk to you. We'll always like network, and there's just another buyer. That's the thing. Everybody buys at a different buy box.
I love that you said that. Whether it's a broker or agent that is bringing you deal flow, if it's not a fit, that's perfectly fine. Just let that broker know, hey, this is not a fit because of X, Y, Z. Again, this is the criteria we're looking for. Next time you have a deal that might fit it, please let me know. What a lot of people do is they don't even respond. They're like, hey.
They ghost them.
Yeah. My broker buddies, they literally say like 80% of all the investors that they send deal flow to, they never hear back from.
Wow.
It's like, dude, at least thank them for their time and be like, hey, it doesn't fit because of this.
Yeah.
And then that's going to give them the information to go find you the right deal that maybe might be a good fit. But also it lets them know like, hey, you have a pulse on it and you're ready to move forward should the right deal hit your box.
I literally, when I was waiting downstairs to come up here, there's a duplex in LA. The guy sends it to me. I'm confident. I go, I just don't agree with it. I reply back and I go, hey, thanks for the deal. I don't like the basement. I think the rents on it's going to be much lower than expected. It's on a busy street. The lot's not large enough. I go, I would need to buy this for $150,000 less than what you're offering. Please know I'm not even asking that. I know that's insulting. I really appreciate you brought it to me. He replies back, yeah, it's probably a little tighter than it should be. How about this triplex? Gives me another address, right? But if I would have never replied, maybe he doesn't even give me the next address. Like, he appreciated where I'm coming from. He's a great finder that he understands. You know, he doesn't take offense. Some people are like, oh, they're trying to argue with you as to why we don't agree with the value, instead of just, you know, it being okay. Like, not everything fits our box. Not everybody does ADUs. Not everybody wants multifamily. Like, you know? Yeah,
absolutely. What's your number one way to find deals?
It's relationships. 100% networking. When I started, it was MLS, believe it or not. I still find deals on the MLS. I mean, I just 5 to 6 deals every year still come from the MLS through forced equity, right? Through seeing like a good neighborhood and saying I can add the ADU and I can force that equity. And then the rest is like just friendships. Like someone that I might have met like yourself, you know, you now know me, you now know I buy. Someone might come at you with the deal in LA and you go, I don't touch LA, I'm San Diego. Hey, call my boy Jess. Right? Someone sends me a deal now in Chula Vista and I'm like, it's too far for me. Let me see if Rich wants it. Right? And then I throw it to you and you may go, no, I don't, but my buddy does. Right? And when we take care of each other like that, and it's not even like throwing 10 on it. Like some people be like, I'm gonna pass it off, pay me 10K. It's like, well, I'm just gonna give you the deal because I would rather you perform for a guy that brings me deals so it keeps my relationship, you know, right? Like if I just helped you, you just helped me by looking good to this person, you help that person because we closed a deal. And the flow just happens, man. Like, I mean, I must comp 10 houses a day and I can't buy that many houses, you know? And if it's something that I know fits in someone else's buy box that's a friend, I'm always connecting people, right? And then people are always coming back to me. I had a buddy that sent me a deal, small deal. He didn't want it. It was too small, bro. Like this deal literally was going to make 70 grand. And he's like, yeah, I won't fuck with that. You know? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. And I crushed it on this house. He calls me and I'm thinking, dude, he's going to be like, I should have never gave you this house. I lost my, he was like, I'm so stoked, man, blah, blah, blah. And then I throw him a deal out in, you know, Long Beach because that's where he likes, you know, it's like, it's collaboration, not competition.
Absolutely. It's the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. And the people that have the mindset that you just alluded to go so much further in life than the people that have the scarcity mindset, the people that are looking at you and I like competition. There's so much money out there. You just got to go out there and get it. Everyone can win at the end of the day.
You and I can only do so many deals, right? Like it's like you get to kind of like, you're like, okay, I'm full right now. My belly's full. I don't need anything else. You push through some of your inventory. You're like, I'm hungry again, right? Like, but in the meantime, there's still people trying to feed us. So it's like, why not help those people by feeding someone else and knowing that if you're always doing the right thing, things will always come back. Opportunity will always come back.
How do you typically fund your deals?
Private capital. I bridge through either like legitimate hard money loans, like some of the big companies, and then I put the 10 to 15% loan to cost out of my own capital, or I have my mentor that I talked about. So Richard, who's still my mentor, he'll go 100% financing for me through like we've been doing it for 10 years. I've been working with him. Like I am trained in his brain. Like when I train people, they learn my brain's his brain. Like he knows if I'm sending him a deal, it fits the way that it should in a way that he feels comfortable, and he'll go 100% financing on it. And then I pay for rehab.
So if let's say you get a hard money loan for 85% loan to cost, and then you got to go, you go to an investor. Is it typically one investor that will fund one deal?
So on the 85%?
Yeah.
One investor funds one deal.
Okay. So you'll get a loan for the 85% and then you'll go to an investor for
No, I put in the 15% out of my own capital.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it out of my own capital, which at my price point of buying like $1 million, $1.3 million, it's about $250,000 every deal. Is kind of the way it ends up coming out because of, I'll get the rehab funds back built into the deal, which I'm a huge fan of. And then sometimes I get the payments wrapped into it on some of these bigger lenders. So you can really take purchase price plus rehab plus 12 months of payments all bundled together and then come in with 15% of that. And it's a great leverage. Now I have done though, to be honest, is, I might throw a deal on Instagram and then somebody goes, and I'm looking for 200 grand on this deal. I'll pay you 12%. And then they'll give me that money to put in. And I'm truly at a full 100%. They're getting paid 12. I'm paying the big private money company 9.5. But because it's such a good deal and I have so much spread in it, everybody wins, I win. And it allows me to like leverage a little bit more to do more volume. So yes, if you want to do that, I would do that with you, Rich. You can give me money.
Yeah, I love that. And then from a negotiation standpoint, in terms of like pricing and terms, any creative things or ways that you like to negotiate these deals, closing costs, anything like that?
Like when I'm buying them?
Yeah.
So no, I mean, it's, to come in as a cash buyer, right? We're always representing ourselves as the big investor that's a cash buyer. I don't need closing costs. I close in 10 days. You can leave everything in the house that you don't want. I'll trash it out for you. Like my whole life is about how to make it so easy for you that you want to work with me. So, I mean, I've had to do where I misbudgeted. Like when I said, hey, just leave whatever you want. They left the whole house. Like I was like, oh my God, like it was like $7,000 for a trash out, right? And I was like, well, that wasn't on the line item budget that I expected, but they were happy to leave. There's been times where someone inherits the property. They're not going to get as much capital out of the deal because there's multiple siblings. I cash for key them. Here, I'll give you 25 grand as well to you, right? Like you just build it into your performa. And if it makes sense, it makes sense. Dude, I've JV'd with sellers that are like, hey, this home, you're only going to sell it for 300 to me, but I think I can get 5. How about I guarantee you the 300, right? I don't close on it. So now I have no hard money costs, no payments. And then I put in the 50 for the rehab. So you get the first 300, I get the next 50. We profit share on whatever's left over. And then so all of a sudden we make 150 grand and they made 75. I made 75. They're stoked because instead of making 300, they made 375. And I'm stoked because I didn't put any debt in my name, and it was just another free deal. And that's how I beat out a different investor that was door knocking them.
I love that. What's the best deal you've ever done?
It was probably in Orange County. It was in Newport. I bought it for $3 million. The owner wasn't ready to sell because they were inheriting the property. Family member hadn't passed away yet. So they didn't get the step up tax basis. So they said, Jesse, I can't sell it to you yet because I want to save on the taxes. So I said, well, how about I rent it from you until like this happens. Let's put a timeline on it, but you let me remodel it during the rental period. So I negotiated $7,000 to them in rent. Essentially, it's me just paying them to remodel it. And within 12 months, they had to sell it to me, regardless if the family member died or not, right? So I had an out on that. They totally said yes. I invested $250,000 into this remodel. Wasn't paying, because you know what the hard money costs on a $3 million loan are going to be, right? It's going to be $27,000 or something crazy. Around month 9, I'm done with the remodel. The family member passes away. They said, Jesse, I'm ready to sell. I closed escrow on it at $3 million at that point, fully remodeled. I listed the next day and sold it for $4.1 million.
Wow. How much were you all in for?
Like under 250 on it. So it was like, I don't know, 325 plus another 9 times 7, like another, so 3.3.
Wow.
And I did 4.1, right? And it was just like, so it was a $700,000, $850,000 deal. But it was the creative financing part that is what I loved. To like, don't take no from, like, they wanted to sell. We just had to figure out a way to make it work so all parties could win. And, in the end, I'm thinking to myself, dude, are they going to be mad that I'm selling it for this much. They were like, can we see your finished product? I saw it on the MLS. I'm so happy for you. They didn't care, man. They were so happy that they made $3 million, that they didn't have to pay taxes on it. Like, I mean, there's some cool stuff out there to really make it work in this market, you know?
What year was this for context?
It was just a year and a half ago.
I love that.
I mean, just during COVID.
There's so much, and that's a perfect example. We were just talking about it. There is so much money out there. You just got to make it happen. Anyways, my man, hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on, dude. I'm a big fan of everything you're doing, and I'm looking forward to following along with your journey.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Maybe I'll come up to Redlands in that airplane with Oscar next time. And yeah, let me know when that thing's done.
I will, dude. I will.
I'd love
a year
to come
from
up
now.
there. Okay.
Awesome,
Perfect,
man.
dude.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.